Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I am your host, Wendy Weiss. I am the founder of Salesology and the Salesology Prospecting Method. And I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. Today, my very special guest, who is laughing at me as I introduce her, we are very lucky to have Barbara Spector, who is the founder and CEO of SmartMoves. She helps existing sales teams from industries as varied as banking, high technology, and building products fully discover what's needed to grow sales by at least 17% or more, and who wouldn't want that? She's been doing this since 1997. Her company is SmartMoves, and she has guided her clients to deploy a little-known but proven process that saves time and money and takes the guesswork out of how to drive reliable and escalating sales growth during the best or even the most challenging times. So I will be sure to ask Barbara about that. And her proven process helps executives and sales leaders uncover solutions that address all of the unknowns, which inhibit them from accelerating their top-line revenue, improving their mindset, and developing the right strategies and action plans. So welcome, Barbara. You set a very high bar.
Oh, thank you so much.
I am so happy that you are here.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Yeah, so let's begin at the beginning. How did you become the founder and CEO of SmartMoves?
Well, it's a really interesting story. So I had been working for corporations up until 1997. And what I found was that most organizations, not even in the scope of sales per se, but just overall, were clueless about how do you hire the right people, how do you develop the right people, and how do you keep the right people on purpose rather than by accident. And what that ultimately led to was that became the theme of my business back in 1997, because it seemed like it was a major gap that needed to be filled. So I began working with companies interested in hiring everything from an admin assistant all the way up to a CEO. And most importantly, hiring and also developing salespeople, because what seemed to be missing is salespeople are different than hiring anybody else, because they're salespeople and they sell themselves. And most hiring managers, their main job isn't interviewing people, it's doing their business of, building the company, building the growth of the organization. What I came to see as for myself as a sales manager is that there were certain things that were almost hidden below the surface in salespeople that if they could be uncovered would make a huge difference. And by the way, not just in salespeople, but in sales managers and in sales VPs as well. There's a whole bunch of things that most companies look at as symptoms without being able to understand what root cause of the symptoms are. And so I discovered a process wherein it's almost like going to a doctor if you're not feeling well. If you went to a doctor and you're not feeling very well, and he just asks you a couple of questions and then sends you into surgery because you have chest pains, right? And after going through all that upset, stress, and expense, the ultimate diagnosis is all you had was indigestion. Horrible experience. Now, that really doesn't happen in medicine, but it happens all the time in sales organizations. They just, with no fault of their own, just don't know that there's another way to uncover what's really keeping them stuck, keeping them from growing. And I'm not talking about just a brand new organization or an SMB company. This goes on with multi-billion-dollar companies as well. So it's become a major focus of what I love doing, because the ahas that happen for those organizations and the end result are phenomenal.
Okay. So let's cut to the chase, because I know you even wrote a book called How to Hire a Rock Star Salesperson. So how do you hire a rock star salesperson? Let's just get it out on the table. How do we do
But
that?
sure, we can talk about that for sure. Well, there's a whole bunch of steps. Again, keeping in mind that the average person hiring a salesperson takes a lot of things for granted. But one of the biggest things that I see over and over again is they don't know how to write a killer ad, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where you're going to start to attract great people. And what most companies do, for instance, is they just post a job board. And job boards, they just post a job description. I apologize. And job descriptions only measure or only talk about basic skills and duties and responsibilities. What we've got to do, especially these days, we've got to entice the candidate based on what's in it for them. What's in it for them to join this company? How are they going to grow? What difference can they make in an organization, which is so important to millennials these days? How are they going to be able to contribute to the growth of that company? That's the first step. Second step is, if I'm going to go through this, and I'm happy to do it, is we overlook things that are written in resumes. We get a resume for a salesperson. If you look at the objective, it says, I want to be a sales manager. Well, we don't want to be hiring somebody who ultimately wants to be a sales manager if there's no opportunity for them to be a sales manager. And the third thing, which I think is critical, is there are a gazillion sales assessments out there claiming to be sales assessments. And they're not. They're just personality tests cloaked in sales language. So companies need to use a tool that actually measures selling competencies, because it doesn't matter if somebody can sell, whether they have potential to sell. What matters is if they will. And so there are tools out there that can help them. We use one in particular that clearly defines if somebody will sell. What comes out after that is, do they have the right skill to interview people correctly? And then after that is, do you have it, once you make an offer and a candidate accepts it, do you have a good, at least a 90-day onboarding program, which is made up of many, many things. But most companies, when they are, after they hire someone, it's kind of like, here's your desk, here's your phone, kid, go get them. And that will never work. That will just never work.
That will never work. Never. You're singing my song there. So, so you and I were talking a little bit before we started this podcast, and we were talking about mindset. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious what you think. If someone's looking to hire a salesperson, what's the mindset of a rock star salesperson? And how do you recognize it?
Great question. It's hard to recognize without scientific or objective data, like a really good sales assessment. I'll give you just a couple of them that are absolutely critical. You might think at first when I say these, well, that seems obvious, but they're hard to measure. And so the first one is, somebody's got to have a burning desire to be successful in selling. You might think, well, isn't that obvious? Well, you'd be surprised at how many salespeople actually have no drive whatsoever, or very little. But you've got to combine that then with how committed are they to doing whatever's necessary based on the company's expectations to actually do those things and not step back when they get uncomfortable. Those are two critical ones, along with high motivation level. But then there's some hidden mindsets. And some of those will impact somebody that has been really well trained. They know how to hunt. They know how to ask great consultative questions. They know how to meet with the right decision maker. They know how to sell value, but they don't do it because there are about 5 specific hidden mindsets that all salespeople have. And if they're in the negative, they will impact their ability to actually use the skills they actually have. I'll give you just a couple. The first one is lots of salespeople have a need to be loved by their prospects.
I'm laughing now. Yes, they do. They do.
And I'm not sure what that means to you, Wendy, but it's not about, we all say, and we all know we want to work with people that we like and trust. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about somebody who, from the time they were a little kid, had to prove themselves and prove their self-worth by being loved and liked. And so when they're in a selling situation with a prospect, they won't ask those tough questions that would actually make a prospect think. Okay.
I can give you an example of that. I'm working with a client right now. We teach prospecting, and he keeps talking to me about wanting to build relationships, which is a good thing.
Yes.
But you can't build a relationship with somebody that doesn't engage with you and set up that appointment and take the next step. But he never asked for the appointment because he's afraid he's going to offend them.
You got
and
it.
then they won't like him. And then he won't have a relationship with somebody that he already does not have a relationship with because they won't take the next step.
Exactly. Right on, right on. And the thing is, these things can be changed in people. It just takes a bit of work. And it depends how far back in time, in terms of their lifespan, some of these things have been like implanted into them. So that's one. You want me to describe another one for you?
Absolutely, please.
Okay. Here's a goodie that nobody ever thinks about. I'm sure you have heard in your work with your coaching clients or your clients, the 3 stalls that are the bane of the existence of a salesperson. The first one is, love what you've got, Wendy, but me and my partner, we need to think it over.
Yes.
Or the second, right? Second one, we love what you got, but I'm not crazy about your price. We're going to go price shopping. And the third one that comes up, what do you think the third one is that comes up all the time, or that you've heard? If you can't,
we're already working with someone that does that.
Yeah, that's another one. But you're at the end point in the meeting, and they love what you've got. The third one that tends to show up all the time is, we're going to go comparison shopping. Love you dearly, but we have to look at 2 or 3 other companies. I'm sure you've heard that over and over again, right? So what most people don't know is the reason that a salesperson accepts those stalls is because that is how they buy themselves. Let me give you an example. Let's imagine I want to get a big 65-inch flat screen TV for my den. I know exactly what brand I want. I know how much I want to spend. I go into Costco or Best Buy. I see it. It's the right price, but I've got to think it over. Now, here's where the problem arises. If that's my mindset, and I forget to take my consumer hat off when I meet with a buyer, and they say, I want to think it over, in my mind, I go, well, that makes complete sense. That's what I would do. And so it extends your sales cycle. So we can measure that. We can uncover that and help people to just first be aware of it, so it no longer affects the length it's going to take to close deals. Does that make sense?
Oh, that makes perfect sense. We actually teach our clients how to use the prospect's objection as the reason they should say yes.
Exactly.
But the first thing we have to do is stamp out that idea that what the prospect is saying is reasonable. If it's not, sometimes it's reasonable. But if it's something like, well, I have to think about it, I have to talk to my husband, my wife, my sister, my partner, my dog, whatever it is, these things that are not always reasonable, and we have to help them stamp out that thought process that, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead, do that.
Yeah. And usually, oftentimes, the real solution is for the if you think of it from the standpoint of what the salesperson maybe didn't do, is maybe they didn't sell value. Maybe the reason the person's thinking about it has to get a better price, whatever, is they jumped the gun. They didn't go deep enough and uncover the real, either express the real value or uncover the sales, the buyer's real need. I call it a compelling reason to buy. If you don't do that, then price becomes a major objection. Comparison shopping becomes a major objection.
Absolutely. I want to go back to something that we were talking about earlier, because I was reading this study earlier today, and it back to what we were saying about hiring salespeople. And I'd like to get your take on this, because the study, and this I had heard before, that something like 83% of newly hired salespeople are gone in 3 years. They've either quit or you've had to let them go because they're not selling anything. Mm-hmm. And then the study went on to say, and this was something that I was not aware of, that most companies know within a matter of 3 weeks to maybe 3 months at the outside whether or not that new salesperson that they have hired is actually a good fit. Mm-hmm. And so they find this out early, and then they spend the rest of the time trying to fix the problem. And I'm wondering what your thoughts on that is, because I see it a lot, and I'm wondering if you do as well.
Yeah, I do. And I think the problem is that there hasn't been enough due diligence before they hire someone as to really what the capability of that salesperson is. I think hopefully that's part of the answer to your question. The other part is that people don't know when to, it's like fish and cut bait, so to speak. It's like the amount of money that's wasted on the bad fit of a salesperson because they hold on to them for too long is ginormous. We've done what we call cost of ghost surveys, right? Where we look at how much does this cost the company over the last 5 years to fire or lose salespeople even, and it's in the millions of dollars. So it's far better. Some companies have a policy. It's like, oh, we never fire anybody. We're a family-based organization. Well, would you not help somebody who was literally a part of your family? Maybe put them into an intervention if they were an alcoholic, let's say. But companies are holding on to people way too long. And the reason that they're not working out in the first place is twofold. They were not the right fit in the first place, and they didn't have the tools to know that ahead of time. And secondly, if they're on board and let's imagine they were a good fit, most of the responsibility is the word I want to use, lies in the hands of the sales manager, who didn't onboard them properly, didn't continue to coach them on an ongoing basis, meaning weekly at least. And thirdly, that lack of coaching is often associated with the sales manager not holding them accountable for the expectations that they had laid out in the first place, if they laid out expectations in the first place.
Yes. This is great stuff, Barbara. We're going to pause here for a moment for a word from our sponsor, but then when we come back, I want to continue this conversation about sales managers, and kind of maybe you could give us some do's and some don'ts for sales managers that are managing a team, because you have a little known but proven process. So I want to hear about that. But we are pausing right now for a word from our sponsor, the Salesology Vault. Just about every guest that I have interviewed on this podcast, Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders, has had a free gift for our listeners. As a matter of fact, our guest today, Barbara Spector, she has a guest for you as well. So what we've done is we have taken all of those gifts and we have put them all in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault, and it's packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts, and we add another gift every single week. We release a podcast, we add a gift. So you can log in as often as you'd like. You can download as many gifts as you like. It's all free. Go to bit.ly/gift vault, or the link to the Salesology Vault is in the show notes. Go to the notes, click on the link, download your gifts. You'll be glad you did.
And fantastic. What a great tool or a great opportunity for people to gather all that great information from all of your guests. Terrific.
Absolutely. Every guest that we've had, just about everyone has had an amazing gift. And I woke up in the middle of the night one night and said, let's put them all together. And that's what we did. So it's fantastic. It's free, and you can go back every single week and get a new gift. So go to
I'm going to be looking into that too.
There you go. The link is in the show notes. And we are back with Barbara Spector, who is the founder and CEO of SmartMoves. So, Barbara, let's talk about sales managers. What is your process for helping sales managers make their sales teams productive? Give us some do's and give us some don'ts.
Wow, that's a tall order. And it's a tall order because it's made up of so many pieces. And I don't want to be salesy here, but I mean, a sales manager, first of all, what's happening with the sales manager is oftentimes the things that may not be working for them is a function of something going on with the sales VP. And what's going on with the sales VP may be something going on with the CEO or president of the company. But let's just take it back down to the sales manager, okay? Sales managers have must coach 50% of their time. And many times, in the studies that we've done, we've seen that in most companies, and we actually have a tool that will measure these things, we can identify that most of the time, coaching is only happening on demand. At least 40% of their sales force is indicating that all they're doing is whenever the salesperson needs some help, they're coaching on demand.
So I have a question. How many of what percentage of the salespeople ask for help?
Oh, that I don't have an answer to because it's different for every organization. But they ask for help, but oftentimes the help they're getting isn't the right help. Most sales managers are giving them technical help. They don't understand really how to coach. Coaching is not giving advice on, well, what we see happen. Let me back up a minute. What happens oftentimes is the sales manager thinks that coaching is about sitting down with the salesperson and saying, so tell me about your meetings today. And here's what you should do different. What needs to be happening instead is they need to identify with the salesperson, what do you think you did right in that meeting? What do you think that didn't work as well? And once that's answered, is to enable the salesperson to come back with the answer to this question. How do you think you could do it differently next time so you have a more positive result? It's about enabling the salesperson so they can become empowered with coming up with their own answers rather than shoving a response back that may or may not be the right result, the right solution. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
So we've got the issue of also holding the team accountable. And a few minutes ago, I was talking about the need for approval.
Yes.
We're talking about mindset. Well, guess what? Sales managers have the same problem. So if they know that a salesperson isn't going to meet quota, or that the deals they put into a pipeline are really sketchy, if they have a need for approval, they won't hold the salesperson accountable. Velvet glove and iron fist and a velvet glove are not being be harsh and objectionable, but they don't hold people accountable because they have a need for approval themselves. The third thing is they don't understand what the motivational baseline is for salespeople. Some salespeople are what we call extrinsically motivated. They're in it for the bucks, and there's nothing wrong with that. But other salespeople are in it for the recognition, the job well done, that they really helped. So if a sales manager doesn't know how salespeople are motivated, they may be using the completely wrong approach in how they think they're motivating people. And the last piece is, do they have any competency to recruit effectively? I think there's 4 things that a sales manager must be doing: holding people accountable, coaching, motivating, and recruiting if that's part of their job.
So I'm wondering if you see, because I see it a lot, sales managers who also, they have their own book of business.
Yes.
And they're selling, and then they're kind of managing on the side. And managing, if there's a real sales team, that's really a full-time job, like all by itself.
It is. It is. And, if there was a guideline or a policy, which there isn't, that sales managers don't have their own book of business, that would be terrific. It would really help them. But I think part of what occurs is that companies take a stellar salesperson, one of their highest achievers, and turn them into a sales manager. And the big bucks are in selling. It's not in managing, right? So they go about, doing their own sales and tend to neglect the other part of their job, which is managing salespeople. I hate to even use the word managing. It's coaching them. That's the most important thing.
Yes, salespeople need coaching. Everyone needs coaching on one level or another. I have a coach. And I think the thing with promoting the exemplary salesperson to sales manager is sometimes that person doesn't have the background. They know what worked for them, but the people they're coaching or managing are not them. They're other people. And if they only have one way of proceeding, not everybody's going to be able to do it their way.
Exactly. And what you bring up in saying that reminds me of the fact that a salesperson is an individual contributor. A manager is one to many, producing results through people, not doing it on your own. So if a manager has not made the psychological leap to producing results through people, it's a kiss of death. And so it's exactly what you were pointing to.
So this has been a great interview, Barbara. Would you put your hand over your heart and promise me you'll come back?
I'd love that. I really would.
Okay, good. And I know you have a gift for our listeners. So let's talk about your gift. We talked about mindset a little bit earlier, but you have the money mindset special report. So tell us what that's about.
Okay, well, during this conversation, we touched on a couple of the hidden mindsets that salespeople have that inhibit them from being effective, using the skills they have. So this special report that I have actually covers all of the 9 hidden mindsets that salespeople have, either to the positive or the negative, and what the impact of them are if it's positive or if it's a negative mindset. And then what to do about it. And my free gift is available at theguide.vip. Really short and easy to remember. And it's yours for the taking. It's a piece of the work that we do to uncover those things in a sales organization that are actually completely hidden from view. to which we need answers, but we don't yet get at it through traditional means. So it's one piece of what we do.
Okay, wonderful. So you can go to theguide.vip, or we'll post the link in the show notes. And as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. And Barbara, where can people find you if they want to connect? What's the best way of going about doing that?
So if you'll simply go to VIP chat with barb.com, you can schedule a time to talk. You'll also get a bit of an information about how we can help you, what the results might be in doing so. And you can also find us at our major website, which is SmartMoves Inc., as in incorporated, SmartMoves, as in Sam, IN as in Nancy, C as in cat.com.
Okay, and we will post all of those links in the show notes. So if you want to get in touch with Barbara, after you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the links.
We'd be happy to help you.
And you have been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders with our special guest, Barbara Spector. And if you have found value in today's podcast, then please think about one business owner or one entrepreneur or one sales professional, one sales manager that you know that might also find value in today's podcast. And please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.